Let us first examine a standard essay prompt. It asks whether traveling abroad to learn a foreign language offers advantages that outweigh the disadvantages of studying in your hometown. The core analytical task here requires the writer to weigh two opposing forces against each other to reach a logical conclusion. In response to this task, the author takes a definitive stance immediately. The opening paragraph states that the unique advantages of full immersion far outweigh the drawbacks. To prove this thesis, the essay employs a specific structural strategy known as a concession framework. A concession framework operates by intentionally validating the strongest points of the opposing viewpoint before completely dismantling them. Rather than immediately listing the benefits of travel, the essay's second paragraph deliberately builds a formidable case against its own thesis. Acknowledging severe, real-world drawbacks right out of the gate serves to build intellectual credibility. By first proving the case against their own position, the author makes the eventual conclusion feel like a hard-won realization rather than a biased opinion. The author opens the concession by identifying the most immediate hurdle, the financial burden on the learner. This animated diagram categorizes the specific financial metrics involved: flights, tuition fees, living costs, and accommodation. Individually, these represent standard expenses, but piled together, they rapidly accumulate into a single, overwhelming barrier, making the immersion option unrealistic for a specific demographic. The text explicitly defines this excluded group as people with limited financial means. Notice the academic, objective tone used in this section. The author relies on measurable financial reality rather than emotional appeal to validate the counterargument. This establishes a hard, tangible cost, setting up a contrast with the intangible costs that follow. By outlining financial realities as an unyielding gatekeeper, the author proves their objectivity. This neutral posture lends credibility to the advantages they will present in the next section. The essay then shifts focus to the second half of the concession, the intangible, emotional strain. The root cause of this strain is the physical separation from family and familiar surroundings. This flowchart maps the causal chain of psychological deterioration. Unfamiliar surroundings breed loneliness and homesickness. This emotional isolation destroys a learner's motivation to adapt, ultimately leading to a complete reduction in study effectiveness. However, the author introduces this sequence of failure with a highly specific conditional phrase, if not carefully managed. Those 5 words act as a logical escape hatch. They admit the risk exists, but prevent the psychological argument from completely destroying the core thesis. Mapping this worst-case psychological scenario represents the absolute peak of the concession framework. The essay has established the lowest possible baseline, creating tension right before the pivot. The text then executes its turn with a sharp transition, nevertheless with the right preparation. This phrase functions as a conditional gate, signaling that the financial and psychological risks discussed earlier are not absolute barriers, but challenges that can be mitigated through the right preparation. With the risks contextualized as manageable, the text introduces its first dominating advantage: daily exposure to the target language in authentic contexts. This matrix contrasts the learning environments. Left, a hometown classroom with static, single-source inputs. Right, an authentic context with continuous, multi-directional inputs, allowing learners to continuously absorb vocabulary and natural pronunciation in real time. The direct resulting impact is a rapid improvement in the learner's listening and speaking skills. The author then introduces the concept of mandatory usage. Living in a foreign culture means students must constantly put their language skills into practice, simply to navigate daily life. This mandatory, real-world application forces the brain to convert theoretical classroom knowledge into permanent, accessible memory. Real-time, authentic exposure bypasses the artificial limits of hometown study. It serves as the first heavy weight placed firmly on the positive side of the prompt scale. Before concluding, the essay offers a secondary, micro-concession, admitting that some students will initially struggle to communicate confidently. This creates a paradox within the text. The intense initial struggle actually acts as a catalyst, rapidly accelerating overall fluency. The mechanics are straightforward. Being forced to navigate a daily routine through a thick language barrier builds self-assurance by necessity. This line graph measures fluency over time. The immersion line starts with a sharp dip, representing the frustrating struggle to communicate, before curving steeply upward, crossing the gradual trajectory of hometown study when survival necessitates fluency. Notice the author's deliberate use of the verb pushes. It implies an external environmental pressure that guarantees a faster learning rate. Because the total immersion environment removes the option to quit, it converts psychological stress into high-speed linguistic competence. The essay then transitions to its concluding synthesis and issues a final judgment on the prompt. It briefly reviews the summarized drawbacks from the opening paragraphs, financial pressures, and emotional challenges. But the author applies a critical recategorization, labeling these hurdles as temporary setbacks. This balancing scale illustrates the final equation. Temporary setbacks are weighed against a trio of benefits: real-life practice, cultural understanding, and deep personal growth. This holistic evolution of character adds a massive weight to the scale, measured far beyond vocabulary alone. The overarching logic of the essay holds firm. The intense short-term costs serve as an entry fee for permanent holistic mastery, decisively answering the prompt's question in the affirmative.